Ring detent pins. A ring detent pin is a quick release pin used in a rapid release application. Each pin comes equipped with a locking detent ball that holds the pin in place by spring force. Think of a weight stack on a piece of weightlifting equipment, for example. The pin works by being inserted through the hole, at which time the detent ball depresses into the pin shaft, allowing the pin to slide through, and once the pin and detent ball come out the other end of the application, the detent ball pops back up by securing the pin in place. To remove, pull with force, and the ball will once again retract back into the shaft, allowing the pin to slide out. Standard stock shank diameters range from 3/16 to a half, with standard grips up to 3 inches. Custom sizes are available by request. Pins are stocked in both steel and stainless steel. Steel pins come in both clear zinc and yellow zinc. For loss prevention, add a wire rope lanyard and affix it to the piece of equipment or machinery. Moving on to the guide. Ring detent pins are composed of 15-digit smart part codes. All important attributes of the pin are broken up into categories and listed out on the part code guide. Follow the color-coded guide to translate the description into an Innovative Components part number. Located at the bottom of the guide is the layout of the smart part code. Use this to guide you when creating a part code. To start, take notice that the product listed in red is a ring detent pin. All ring detent pin part numbers will be a 2-digit designator taking up the very first 2 spaces. All ring detent pins will start with RD. Next, we move on to the orange section labeled Pin Diameter. All but one pin diameter will be listed within 2 digits in spaces number 3 and 4 of the part code. Each fractional diameter translates to a 2-digit designator. Exception: the 3/16 diameter will be listed out using 3 digits in spaces number 3, number 4, and number 5. In cases of a 3/16 pin, we will simply move the rest of the part code over by 1 digit. When we get to the specials in purple, we reduce the specials place allotment by 1 to recalibrate and keep the 15 part number digits. Example: 3/16 diameter equals 316 in a part number format, where a 1/4 inch diameter becomes 4x within the part number. Next, we move on to the green section called the effective, usable, or grip length. There are 4 places allocated to this attribute located in spaces number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8 of the part code. The first digit is a whole number in space number 5. Imagine as if there is a period after the first whole number. Spaces number 6, number 7, and number 8 are saved for any decimal places. Grip length is identified by measuring the inside of the detent ball to the inside of the ring. If a pin is 4 inches in grip length, you would see 4000 in these spaces. If a pin is 2.5 inches in grip length, you would see 2500 here. Next, we move on to the blue section called shoulder style. There is 1 space allocated to this attribute. If the pin has a shoulder, add an S in spaces number 9 of the part code. Next, we move on to the purple section called specials. We reserve 4 spaces, number 10, 11, 12, and 13 for this attribute for all diameters except the 3/16 diameter. 3/16 diameter pins will only have 3 spaces available for specials in spaces 11, 12, and 13. Typically, an X will be entered into any one of these 3 spaces, articulating that there is something special or something custom about this particular part. Enter dashes in the other 2 available spaces. In cases where there is nothing special to note, enter dashes in all 3 spaces. Next, we move on to the fuchsia attribute called pin material. This section is in regards to what type or what grade of material the pin is made out of. We allocate 1 space in space holder number 14 for the material of the pin. Common materials are listed out, but the stock standards and most popular materials are highlighted in bold. The standard steel or grade 2 steel becomes a 2 in a part code. Grade 5 steel becomes a 5 in a part code. Lastly, we move on to the gray attribute called plating. Plating is a coating of metal used to serve as a rust inhibitor. We reserve one space in space holder number 15 for the plating of the pin. Common platings are listed out with the most popular being in bold font. We do not ever plate stainless, so in cases of a stainless steel material pin, we would use 0 for plating, also known as plain. Zinc clear is a popular plating of these pins, so you will often see a 1 in this space holder. Now that we know how to use the part code guide, let's move on to the practice quiz and put it to use. Ring detent pin quiz. Number 1. We have a 1/4 by 2.5 stainless steel ring detent pin. First, we look at the item in red. That's the product. All ring detent pins will start with RD. Next, we look at the description and we see 1/4 by 2.5. 1/4 is the diameter. 2.5 is the effective or grip length. So pin diameter, we look at a 1/4 translates to 4x. We put 4x in the two placeholders for spot number 3 and 4 in the part code guide. Next, we move on to the effective or usable length. The description shows it's 2.5 inches effective or usable length. We have 4 placeholders available, 1 whole number and 3 decimals. 2.5 inches is the effective or grip length. 2 being the whole number, we pretend like there's a decimal right after the 2, and then we would put a 500 in the effective length. Next, we move on to shoulder style. The description does not call out that there is a shoulder. If there is nothing to note, we simply put a dash in this placeholder. Next, we look at the purple section, specials. The description does not call out anything special. This is a very basic standard part code. So for the specials location, we would simply put 4 dashes. Moving on, we have pin material. The pin material is stainless steel. So we come over to the pin material translation section and we see stainless steel translates to a 7. We would put a 7 in the material. And lastly, we have plating. We do not ever plate stainless steel. When there is no plating, we use 0 for plain or no plating. So the part code is going to be RD 4X 2500 dash 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 70. Number 2, we have a 3/8 by 2 3/4 steel zinc ring detent pin with a shoulder. So we would start out the part code with an RD in the first 2 placeholders. Next, we have to figure out what's the translation for the pin diameter. So we have 2 different specifications, 3/8 by 2 3/4. The 3/8 is the diameter. So if we look at our part code guide, we'd see 3/8 translates to a 6x. We would put a 6x in the orange section. Next, we move on to the effective length. It's 3/8 by 2 3/4. So 2 3/4 is your effective length, also known as your grip length. So we would put 2 is your whole number. We pretend like there's a decimal space there. And then we have to convert the 3/4 into a decimal. 3/4 translates into 750. So it'll be 2750 in these 4 placeholders. After that, we have in the blue section the shoulder style. Is there a shoulder? Yes, in this case there is. So we would add an S to this section. Moving on to specials. Is there anything else special to note? In this case, there is not. So we would add 4 dashes. Dash, 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 dash. Then we move on to the fuchsia section for pin material. This pin is calling out steel. So our regular grade 2 steel, or our standard steel, that translates to a 2 for the pin material. Lastly, we move on to the plating in the gray section. This description calls out zinc plating. So we move over to the translation section and we see zinc, which is just your standard clear, is going to transfer into a 1. We would put a 1 into this section. So number 2's part code is going to be RD6X2750 S dash 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 21. Number 3, 5/16 by 5.5 stainless steel ring detent pin. To start, we identify the product in the red section. It's an RD. Next, we move on to the orange section and identify what is the pin diameter. In this case, it's a 5/16 diameter. So we look it up at our translation guide and say 5/16 equals 5x. A 5x would go into the orange section. Next, we move on to the effective or grip length. In this case, it's 5.5 inches. We have to translate 5.5 into a decimal figure. So that would be 5 is your whole number. We pretend there's a period, and then we transfer half inch into decimal, which is 500. So your effective length is 5500. Next, we move on to the blue section for shoulder style. This description does not call out a shoulder, therefore we will use a dash. Next, we move on to the purple section for specials. There's nothing special to note in this description. When there's nothing special to note, we use 4 dashes. Dash, 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 dash. Then we move on to the fuchsia section, pin material. This particular description calls out stainless steel. So we move back up to the fuchsia section and we see stainless steel translates to a 7, and we would put a 7 in placeholder number 14. Lastly, we move on to the plating section. We do not ever plate stainless steel. Therefore, we are going to go over to the plating section and take note that 0 stands for no plating or plane. This particular part code is going to be called out as an RD 5X 5500 dash 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 70. Now, please try to finish the quiz on your own.